Hello, welcome to another episode of Full Circle with me, Onyx. And today I just kind of feeling inspired to talk about kind of like the different levels and expectations that you might need clarified for yourself to have more direction on your magical path. So, when you're dealing with becoming the wizard, becoming an occultist or someone moving in this direction, I think there you have to clearly separate. Like, okay, everything is one, but on some levels, we have to kind of separate and create some definition in order to gain clarity on how you want to get there. And so I kind of put wizardry, sorcery, occultism kind of in a different boat than religion and mysticism, superstition, and fear in psychology in another boat. And I kind of put witchcraft and folk magic in another boat or bucket. So, to gain clarity, when you're doing rituals that have to do with like gathering herbs and possibly praying to gods and deities, um, but mostly like a reenactment of maybe something you want done. So I would put that all under the psychological influence and natural elemental magic, and I'll call that all folk magic and witchcraft. And when you develop your witchcraft to a high degree, that is definitely a powerful, useful line of power to create change in the world. I guess we could call that magic. Um, but the mystic, the spiritual type person, gets to kind of the same means or ends uh, through a different means. So it's prayer, it's belief. So it's religious, it's ceremonial, it's a sense of sacredness and a high drive, a high uh, value on personal purpose. Like a saint, they feel called, they feel chosen to be on a path and influence humanity in a certain direction. It might be love, it might be light, it might be humanitarianism, it might be, save the planet, save the trees, you know. So there's usually like a cause and a purpose and a need and an opposition and an opponent, something evil, the ignorance of man, and we need to evolve them, or they're blind, they need to wake up from the illusion, the dreams. We need to give them this repressed information. So I think even conspiracy theories, being like a chosen one, all kind of goes into, I call most modern mysticism and religious superstitious stuff. So in the realm of psychology. And is it valid? Yes. It's a different means to maybe the same end, to create influence over something. So, and then we have to draw like a line. So we had this witchcraft folk magic here. Then we had kind of like a religious mysticism over here. And obviously, we can't really separate everything because they kind of enhance and influence each other. But there's this line I draw, and I put occultism and source wizardry in another bar. And I'm just going to put it above because I value that more. And so, what we find with the wizarding path is a development of self. There has to be a development of some type. So, like alchemy, the alchemist must change in order to to transmute the object, the lead into gold. So, to do the operation, the one doing the operation must change as well. They're inseparable, quantum string theory, however we relabel it, the same knowledge being relabeled, same truths. So, for me, the wizard is all about acquiring knowledge. And this knowledge gives him dexterity and an ability to manipulate forces, which then, so it's a different means to the same end. And and this is kind of important because the occultist goes about things very much the way the wizard does. So, is there a difference between wizards and witches? The answer is yes. You know, is there a difference between wizards and mystics? Yes. Can the lines blur? Yes. Um, but it's good to understand which discipline you need to develop within yourself. So if all paths are one, you might be weak on the witchcraft folk magic end, the knowledge of using what is here in the earth plane to assist you, in the form of ritual, in the form of object manipulation. And then you must, so let's say now the table's turned. You put witchcraft at the top, and you put occultism, the knowledge part, below, and you put mysticism below. You might be weak in the mysticism. So you're like, I want to work with spirits, I want to work with deities, I want to have a divine connection to my witchcraft and evolve myself into a priestess or a priest. Well, then you better get on. You need to examine your beliefs and your psychology, and you need to get into the inner symbols of psychology, the archetypes. And so then you want to bone up on your mysticism. You might be really good at the theoretical parts of magic. You read all these books and you understand it in your mind, the philosophy, it makes sense to you, the science, it makes sense to you. But you have no practical working. And so your rituals, your casting of circles, your summoning is weak. You better bone up on your folk magic and your witchcraft, um, and understand how fear and superstition work and psychology works in order to get your rituals, in order for you to start working with power. So I've kind of deviated a little bit, but I bring this in because because the lines get blurred and we mix in cultural motifs, we mix in superstition and fear as part of myth and story and legend. Some people have a hard time understanding what's real and what's not real. So the the first phase you go through when you're going to go to like Western mystery school tradition and receive teachings, depending upon how much superstition you have, like the belief in good and evil, right and wrong, karma as punishment, karma as reward, you're in a probationary period, um, until you get that figured out. Because when you start exploring things of an occult nature, good and evil, that line gets blurred when you start working with powers and working with other planes of existence where the physics don't make sense to your brain. Therefore, the morality and the laws of those forces don't make sense to you. You might quickly see, you might think it, your brain will interpret it as horror, or evil, wrong, because it's so different to your moral compass. And so what happens with this idea of everyone needs knowledge. You know, we need to be liberated and not through knowledge. Uh, when you haven't worked out your morality, how you were programmed with religious stuff or gender stuff, cultural stuff, um, laws of the land, laws of the tribe, your community, what's going on currently. Like until you really understand yourself, you can't really be very effective when dealing with angels, when dealing with aliens, when dealing with demons, when dealing with things not of this world. And we ourselves block those interactions. And so the doors stay closed. Deeper teachings can't be revealed to you. And the problem isn't that the teacher's not there, that the teachings aren't there. It's literally you're blind. And it's your own judgment, it's your own beliefs. And so, how do you, and so you have to get good um, at looking under the rug of everything that's been swept under there for generations with inside yourself. And so I find the best tool for me to do that psychological purging, that deprogramming process, is I don't know what I've swept under the rug because or what's in my subconscious, because the whole definition of this material is unknown. I'm fishing in the dark. So let me assume it might be there. I may not know. Someone says, Onyx, you're a bigot. I'm like, really? I've never thought of myself like that. But of course, if I swept it under the rug, then of course I would look in the mirror and not see that. So let me entertain the idea of Onyx, you're a bigot. And then I go, well, how am I bigoted? Let me look up the definition of bigot. Oh, it's someone who has like harsh, like some rigid beliefs, And I'm like, well, I was raised in a religious family that was taught that their religious beliefs of right and wrong were so true, they're all bigots. So basically, the religion they are in is bigotry. And I'm like, well, what did that do to you growing up in a bigoted family? Certainly, you must have some strong moral compass or attitude. You must be bigoted in some area. So, when you hear triggering words or accusations, that could be a clue. Find out where it is true for you. I am a bigot. I think people who own cats are a certain type of way. I think people that own dogs are a certain type of way. I think people that are certain astrology signs are a certain type of way. So, okay, that's where I'm bigoted. Now, are you willing to release it? Yes. Boom. More flexible, more open minded. So then the doors of the mystery start opening more. So, and that was just like a very basic example of the self inquiry that needs to go on in your belief systems, the construct of yourself and the construct of your world, that is a reflection of yourself. And so some psychological analysis of self would be really good and is actually recommended, and a good 5 years of this. And why would some of the greatest occult teachers of, I would say, the 21st century, because they influenced the 21st century, why would they say psychological evaluation first? Because so many people get into magic and the occult as like self-help. They get into it thinking magic is going to solve their problems. Magic is going to win their boyfriends back. Magic is going to break up relationships they see morally unjust, that goes against their sense of rightness, their morality. And so you can save yourself a lot of trouble um, when you do the self analysis, when you get some psychology under your belt, when you realize life is a mirror, when you learn how to stay in your own lane, mind your own business, not put your own values on other people, things, and creatures. And so I love the saying, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So I think, we all survived our childhood thanks to our parents and their good intentions that made our lives living hell. So, do you think now that you're now moving into this uncharted territory, into another universe that doesn't belong to humans, called the astral plane and other dimensions? It's not our home territory. Do you think you might want to leave your values, your your identity behind and become like the beings living there so you can have some harmonious interactions? Yes. So you're not really told why, you know, that you need to stop being human when you move into these other planes or you're working with other powers so you don't be offensive. And this is a big deal. So when people are having negative interactions with fairy folk, when people are having negative interactions with spirits, negative interactions with demons, negative interactions with angels, negative interactions with these other beings, is because you're interacting and assuming you're bringing your own morality into these other realities and these other planes, and it doesn't work that way. And so what you think is customarily um, good may be customarily bad with those forces and with those beings. So that's just a side note. But so level one of what is expected of you is learn how dishonest you're being with yourself. And no fault of your own, culture kind of forces us to be dishonest. In order to get along, we've been all putting on these people pleaser faces. And so the way I'm looking at the world right now is people don't know how to get along with themselves. They don't know how to get along with others. They don't know how to get along with their planet. And it's all coming from this very deep level of learned dishonesty. And what is it getting you? It's got you into the mess that you're in. And so I feel like psychology is teaching people how to self reflect and learn to be honest with themselves. Look under the rug, start pulling this stuff out. Stop labeling it as good or bad. So let's move on. That was level one, and that would be preliminary rounds. And why would the universe bestow great levels of power on you if you can't manage it well? So that is the argument. Why can I skip this step? Isn't this religion? No. You can't skip this step. You can play and learn all these other things, but there will be a point in your development of power, your level of abilities, your skills, like your achievement levels, where you feel stuck. And it's because something probably swept under the rug that needs to be dismantled. Or you simply don't have the willpower. You don't have the strength to hold such energies without creating chaos in your life. So this moves us into the next level of development, the ability to hold power. So self-discipline becomes very, very important. The art of ritual does two major things for you. It develops your will, helps you learn to control and focus the energies, helps you learn to direct them. But over time, working with some very basic rituals, it creates a lot of self discipline and it helps you learn the actual language of magic. So, the language of magic is not an alphabet, it's a ritual. It's a language moving through time and space. And so, and the universe understands this language very well. The only person who's not understanding it is you. So you're learning to understand a language that is natural to your inner self. So thank God we did our preliminaries and we started learning more about ourselves, that we started to understand our own very nature. So the sounds are authentic, the movements are authentic, and the direction of the will is authentic. I could probably take a little pause there because that's how important it is. Understanding the language of magic is a ritual and not so much a spell like a chant or a phrase. Ritual itself is the language of magic. The routine, these cyclical routines in nature, is the language of magic. Okay. So, things that go on during this second level is becoming sensitive to energy, becoming sensitive to the psychic forces. You may have one that works better than the other, and so you might feel vibrations, you might read energy, or you might see energy, or you might hear it, or you might feel it. And how it registers for you, it might be through your body, it might be through your emotions, it might be through your mind, it might be through some other faculty. And through this strength, inner strength that you have, that's what you're reliant on. But over time, you want to be able to develop all of these. So this is like at the second level. It's like, how can you go to a classroom if you can't see what's on the chalkboard? You know, what the teachers put up on the screen. You know, how can you learn to draw and paint if your arms aren't working? How can you learn to sing if your voice isn't working and your ears aren't working? So for a lot of people, their astral senses aren't turned on. They're not awakened. They haven't put enough energy and focus there. So you do activities that help you awaken and develop these, which is really learning to put the energy on your inner eyes till they open, on your inner ears until they open, on your inner senses until they open. So there's a matching set of senses that operate in the astral plane. Until they're on and operational, and you understand, so literally, until that happens, you can't really have very good confirmation on what you're doing in the form of magic and willpower and energy manipulation. You're kind of waiting for confirmation. So then you're reduced to your outer senses to give you feedback. You have to wait for an omen. You have to get a divination reading to confirm if your will was strong enough to make change in the world through the dimensions and through the planes. But if you have your psychic faculties working and highly developed, you don't need that. it's done, you see it done, you see. So your number one tool is your mind when you're dealing with occult, wizardry, high magic. And until these faculties are developed, truly, you're running on instinct, you're running on hope, you're running on faith, and you're blind. So you're in the outer circle. You're with the rest of humanity. But once your inner senses are online, you're kind of moving towards the inner circle where you you get that confirmation and understanding directly through your own inner senses. It's not mystical. You don't have to be a saint. You don't have to be a special. You don't have to have so many years in the practice. You don't have to go through these initiatory steps like Kundalini awakening or a blessing from a guru, or like you don't need any of that new age stuff. If you're so your goal is to get some type of psychic ability working for you. Otherwise, you're limited and your knowledge is limited and it will be limited. So you're still in the basic development process. And I think this is where the most fun is. So don't judge yourself, enjoy the journey. If you still need to light candles and find moon phases to do those type of rituals, if that's what you are into, do it. Um, so there's different levels. Some we start learning how to cook by uh, making a whole bunch of mistakes, and we kind of forget that. Reading recipes, watching shows, practice, 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 and then you get to this level where you know your ingredients so well. You've baked like how many cakes? You understand your oven. You understand the seasons. You understand altitude. And so then you can kind of intuitively make your cakes and you can do substitutions. And so that is just an analogy, but it's a very good one. And understanding your level of ritual abilities and making magic work. So I would say expect a good 5 to 8 years to get good at understanding magic and working with it. And through that process, trial and error, you start to sense how what you can sense, like on an energy level, what is actually working, what is actually aligning, what is actually happening. Through this process, it also naturally develops your psychic abilities, whether it's going to be vision, whether it's going to be sound, whether it's going to be sensation. And then then faith is replaced, belief is replaced to knowledge. You know your circle is set. You know what you put out into the universe hit its target. You know it's coming back. So there's a lot of getting to know you and how your senses are picking up information. And then your confidence grows. There's no question about it. It's like instant confirmation. You changed reality. You jumped timelines. You know what you did, how it's happened. And then you like kind of see the mechanics of the universe. And so you have to use your mind is a telescope. Your mind is a microscope. It sees near, it sees far, it sees, it has the ability to do anything. So, and it's your mind. So there's a lot of self mastery that goes on with the wizarding path under discipline, under practice, getting a strong feel for working, manipulating, rearranging these energies in accordance to your will or for fun. So people forget the fun. And for me, the fun is found in the experiment, in the surprise. I find every time I do a ritual, I learn. Oh, I can tell my circle isn't a perfect circle. Oh, I can tell the energy is kind of moving towards the left instead of the right. Oh, this time it's more electric. Oh, the image dissolved too fast. I get it now. So that's what real visions look like versus projections. All these little nuances happen when you slow down. And it's like watching it over time. You do all these rituals. I don't even care about the end result, the target. Like there was a time for that, point A to point B, or make this happen, do my will, whatever. And then it became more of an art. It's like mixing colors on a palette. I didn't know if I mixed green and orange together, it would make dark teal. I love dark teal. It's like my favorite color. And I put my other favorite color, orange, with green, and that green happened to have a little more blue in it, and now it's made this really cool. And that's where the fun is for me. There's like this experiment, there's a learning going on a very deep level, and it's 100% me working with the universe. New Agers call that co-creation. But if you're not having that in your ritual work, you might be too focused on material goals. You might be worried about things that aren't important. So, really, it's process. Process is an art form. Selecting the paper. When did I decide to do the ritual? I selected